I'm now 26. I'm an executive at a K-12 virtual school, and the youngest person next to me is about 30 years old, and then the next one is about 40. Whenever I advise for companies, everyone around me is in their 50s and 60s. And all that to say that I've always been the youngest person around, and that always led to people asking me about the new thing. And the new thing everyone's thinking about nowadays is artificial intelligence. Mostly large language models like Claude and ChatGPT, vibe coding tools like Replit, Lovable, and image generation models such as Midjourney. And the main question people are always asking me is related to how do I get the advantages from AI and at the same time cover myself from the consequences that might come from it, which are 99% of the times associated with, am I gonna get fired? So as the young person that people reach out to, but also as an executive at a K-12 virtual school, but also as an advisor for education companies and companies from other industries, I'm gonna give you the 3 things that I'm always going back to. The first thing is that you have to learn how to articulate ideas better. And we can get into long conversations about what articulation might mean, but I would say on a simple level, it's that there's something that you have in your brain that you have to communicate. It's in a unique way that only you understand because you have all sorts of context in your brain. If you articulate something properly, people will understand it on a similar level to the way you do. So throughout most of history, this has only happened across humans. So you have a human, let's say I'm a leader at a company, I'm trying to get someone to do something. If I ask them to do it, is the result that I want to happen happening? If the answer is yes, then I properly articulated it. If not, it didn't happen. You know, if I'm onboarding someone to run, let's say, social media ads for our school, without my intervention, without them talking to me, are they able to execute them in the way that I would based strictly on what a document that I'm giving them is saying? If the answer is yes, chances are that I was able to properly articulate the way in which, for example, we like to run ads for our school. The reason I bring this up is that one of the first things that you'll notice with ChatGPT, especially the more you use it, is that the first inclination that a lot of people have is to say that ChatGPT is dumb and is incapable of doing the thing that you ask it to. You know, sometimes usually they are, you know, like a sentence long, and we expect the LLM to be able to translate all of that lack of context and all of that single sentence into the kind of action that they were expecting them to do. And then it doesn't do it, and we call it dumb, and we stop using the tool. My piece of advice here is keep doing it, keep trying. If I could theoretically, for example, explain all the thought process that is involved in me creating a financial report for my company and get it into an LLM, theoretically, an LLM would be capable of doing so. You know, that's why companies like McKinsey and Deloitte are now being caught generating $500,000 consulting reports with GPT. They have the knowledge, it's documented, so they add it into an LLM and they're getting the result that another human would get. So the limit is not the LLM, it's just your ability to articulate it. And this is crucial because usually you're trying to do something and you're trying to do something with the help of AI. It might be the creation of essays, it might be the creation of videos, you know, a promotional video for your company, or a series of Substack essays around, you know, your company's philosophy. Or it might be something as you creating a new software. Let's say you're trying to learn how to play some instruments. Maybe you can create a software in which you upload 1,000 sheets of music, and kind of like in a swipe motion, like in Tinder, you go, I don't like this one today. Oh, I love this one. Let's play this one. And now I see the cheats. All of those things are capable of being created if you can articulate it. And with the McKinsey and Deloitte example that I post, I was teasing the second bit of, or the second principle or thing, whatever, that might be required to gain both the advantages of AI, but also to avoid the consequences of not learning how to do it. And it's just that you need a lot of source knowledge, a lot of source material. So I gave the example of McKinsey and Deloitte because a lot of these companies already have massive libraries of documentation from which they train people and they get people to continuously get into a specific output. They can literally, in the course of an afternoon, upload thousands of documents into a large language model or any sort of AI and get it to recurrently get the kind of output that they want to get. You know, this is important because if you're capable of consistently articulating things and then you go ahead and create your own documentation, then it means that you can get any type of output that you're intending to get faster. You know, this is something that I actually feel confident that I could do, and that it's, you know, I'm a master in liberal arts, or at least I'm about to finish, and my intellectual friends will hate me for it, but there might be a possibility of doing a linguistic analysis on the way in which Stephen King writes by analyzing all of his books and then creating some sort of LLM that can consistently write exactly like he does. This is possible to be created because we have the source material from the books, and if I'm capable of articulating how I want the LLM to work like, I could then create software that it's consistently creating, let's say, essays or short stories based on Stephen King. And you might think, oh, it's not the same, or you're not gonna get the exact results, but and chances are that you're right. But you will be right, not because it's impossible to be achieved, but because perhaps for me it's impossible at this moment to articulate how Stephen King writes, like literally the intangible aspects that lead his soul to write in specific ways. But if I were capable of doing so, I could be getting Stephen King-like stories. And that gets into both the key thing with this second bit of information, or the second principle or second thing that I'm advising you to follow, and then as a bridge to the third thing, and that is that you want to be accumulating information, and the way you do things, process knowledge throughout your career from this point forward. Because the more you do that, not only the faster you can get into specific results, but also the more benefits you will get from data. And what do I mean by this? Let's say you have a documented way of running financial analysis on data. Then you also have years of financial data from your company. What you can do with those two is that you can have a process by which you can now find the bottlenecks, the financial bottlenecks of your company, and for them to be analyzed based on, let's say, all this data on how to run financial analysis. And now you can not only save up hundreds of thousands of dollars from a consulting fee, but at the same time, if you're the kind of person who takes action, you can just take action on the recommendations faster than anyone else. Like, chances are your competitors are not even doing analysis. Of course, they're not going to be doing an analysis and executing on it. Perhaps you might document a process by which you can take the recommendations of a financial analysis and then prioritize across all different sides of your business, be it product, sales, customer support. You might prioritize actions that they could take in order to execute on the recommendation from this financial analysis. What's now happening is that what started as a single request for let's run a financial analysis is now the coexistence of documented processes around how to run them, how to report on them, and how to prioritize actions that come and spark out of them. Do this for finance, but also for marketing, and even for your personal life. And of course, you'll be getting the kind of results that nobody else is getting. So because you're accumulating a library of source material that just feeds into each other and just gets more and more complex and robust and hard to find by competitors. And on top of that, you're recurrently using it to make decisions within your business and your life. This is the core principle by which, you have people who are now duplicating themselves in AI versions of themselves that are just talking online. It's also the way in which you have people automating the entire marketing system, and it's that they've managed to articulate, let's say, the principles that should always be part of it, all the principles that should always be part of, let's say, a tweet. And then they have perhaps, hundreds of thousands of hours of source material from which an AI could continuously merge all of those things to generate infinite tweets. Now, I've told you two things that will give you an advantage with AI, but will also cover you from the consequences of not knowing it. First one is you got to learn how to articulate ideas better, on how to articulate in general. And then is that you have to start gathering source material and using it, and having it interact with each other. The third thing that I would use if I wanted to not only gain more advantages in the work that I'm already doing, but also cover myself from the downside, which is usually getting fired, is to not let yourself be fooled by the ease in which you get a particular result. Even it still happens to me as someone who has thousands of hours using AI that there might be a particular result that I'm trying to get, and I get it so fast that it creates an illusion that the result is not valuable, and thus either I don't use it or I don't use it as much as I could. And let me be a little bit less abstract. In AI, a lot of what happens is that the better you get at articulation and the more data that you start collecting, the faster it will be to get specific results that might have taken you hours or weeks to achieve. For example, I have literally dozens of PDFs related to the K-12 virtual school in which I'm an executive. It's describing, our offer, our customers, has tons of interviews, with parents, all sorts of context. And I also have my own playbooks that have come up of hundreds of landing pages that I've built that have always gotten, let's say, above average conversion rates, close rates, calls, all of those different things. And I have templates on the principles that all of those landing pages took. Something that will happen and has happened is that because I have all of that background of properly articulated information that I have documented, I could take my landing page information and I could take my context about my school and I could merge those, and I might create a high converting landing page for our $60,000 tuition, which is about to go up, by the way. And I could create a landing page in maybe 2 hours that it's very likely to convert at a very significant level. And this landing page might have taken me not only weeks or days of work in the past, but also I might have had to pay someone to baby design it. Now this is incredible because if I do this and I replicate these type of actions across everything I'm doing in my work, I will just get results faster than my competitors who are not doing this. I'll also be able to multiply the amount of work that I'm capable of doing in every particular day because I'm getting more efficient, and the more efficient I get, the better my processes get, and the better my processes get, the better the interaction between the process and the source material will get. But something that will happen too, or at least has happened to me and to a lot of people that I interact with, is that because this sounds so simple, we stop doing it. We stop doing the reports. Maybe I do create the process by which I can write exactly like Stephen King, and maybe I write a story that could get a prize in some magazine, or at least could get some acclamation, and maybe I don't publish it because it feels like I just wrote it in 5 minutes. And just like that, the same has happened for people that work in marketing, in sales, in HR, all sorts of people that I speak to. They stop using AI because they just get the result too fast. As someone who, it's an entrepreneur and who's in love with starting new things, I really advise you to do the thing that I really try to do myself, which is just use AI. Get the result fast. Like, don't punish yourself for getting good at analyzing information and articulating it and documenting it, and just getting the type of results that you were getting in the past for a few hours and getting them in a few seconds. On an individual level, the more efficient you are, the more work you can do. Let's say, in the past, and this is an actual example, I used to work for one of the most prestigious content agencies in New York, and it would take me 2 weeks to write 2 essays. Sorry, 1 week to write 2 essays. Nowadays, because I have all the process by which I wrote essays and the logic documented, I could maybe create those 2 essays in a matter of 30 minutes, accounting for both production and editing. If I can achieve that, why would I not scale that to maybe 20 essays per week? Why would not I scale that to maybe 40 or 50? And you perhaps might have a reason within your company, perhaps you don't have an incentive, and perhaps all you want to do is coast around and just get the same output in, 10 times less time, and then just play video games, and that's cool. The issue with that is that some other person will not be doing that and will be having more output, and they will take you out of business. Try to strike some kind of balance between get more efficient and get more time to do things that you want to do, whether they're related to your business or related to just chilling, and balance that out with a need and also just opportunity to just learn faster. Like, we're a period in which if you can articulate again what you want to achieve, and you have the source material by which you can achieve that, and then on top of that, you become okay with getting results faster, you can still work less in terms of hours than what you did 2 years ago, 4 years ago, but you can still use some of that saved time to just upskill yourself. And you can upskill yourself either through literally going ahead and reading and going to college, whatever it may be, or you can also upskill yourself in the way in which I like to upskill myself, which is just produce more. In my case, in marketing, the faster I produce essays and tweets and social media, the more data and feedback I get from consumers on what they like. And the more feedback I get, the more data I have, to go back and feed into the system of, let's say, how to write a proper essay, and the stronger my processes will get. And this is where the whole thing goes into full circle, or perhaps it doesn't, and I'm just saying it to close the video, but it's that the better you get articulation, the faster you'll get to the thing that you want to get. The faster you get to the thing, the more reliably you will be able to create processes that you'll be able to document. The better you're able to create processes, the faster you will get to the thing. And at the same time, the better the results that you will get will be, then you will just be able to continuously increase the gap between where you're at, where your competitors are at. And by competitors, I not only mean companies, but I also mean, the people you're competing with, like your colleagues, but also the other people in the market that, like you, are also trying to increase the gap between those who are going to be laid off from not being able to use AI and those who will not, because they will do and apply these 3 things that I just shared with you.